All right, good morning. Wow, that is really loud. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So what a week we had here at Signature. Who here got to participate in the Tom Blanchard roast? Well, if you know, right? That was the most uncomfortable I've ever seen realtors at a realtor event. It was the funniest thing I've ever been to. I thought Janet was going to pass out, but she didn't. She held on like a trooper. It was a good time. I laughed too. I was watching her as much as I was watching them. So a couple of exciting announcements coming up. We have a great class that Beta and Shelly are putting on, Video Marketing Bootcamp. And Shelly is going to wear boots the entire time. It's every Monday in March, starting at 1 to 2. They ask that you go on and register. They even have a QR code to test your bootcamp awareness, right? So if you know how to use this QR code, you can definitely go and attend. You're going to spend the first week learning why video, the second content creation, the third framework creation, and number 4 video creation. And on the 5th day they'll rest from all the creation. A couple of other things we have. Lois has a class series, of course, always. We have CE going every single month in the office. We have post-licensing, pre-licensing, licensing. So if you need any of those classes, definitely reach out to Lois.
Do we have a relicensing?
No, only for those that need it. And anything I didn't announce?
Yes, can I make some announcements, please?
Please, go right ahead.
We are having a 1-hour CE class today from 12 to 1 on solar panels. I'm seeing more and more issues with solar panels. So I know it's 1 hour, and I've already had somebody sitting here go, 1 hour? Is there such a thing? Well, you know, we've had like 4 1-hour CE classes already. And if you just take 3 of them, that's 3 hours in general. So hey, but back the LVR bowling tournament, which will be Friday, April the 1st. Now, last year we had, I can't remember, 7 or 8 teams, and a lot of people backed out. My phone was blowing up the morning of the tournament going, I'm not comfortable coming. But this year we're not going to have to wear masks, knock on wood. And it's going to be at Sunset Station from 9 to 12. I'd like to have 10 teams. That's really my goal, is to have 10 teams. We'll all wear our red t-shirts that say Signature Strong. We'll network, we'll bowl, we'll have fun, and it's $25 a person. And just give me your $25, and I'll give you a little sheet to put your name and public ID on it, and I'll take care of everything else for you. Carmen, you had a question?
Yeah, can I bring my son?
How old is he? Won't he be in school?
It's Friday morning.
It's Friday from 9 to 12 in the morning.
I don't know. I've never seen kids there, so I don't know if they allow kids.
No, they don't.
I saw
They
somebody
allow young at heart. but-
bring their kids one time. But anyway, so it's a lot of fun, and all the money goes to Community Outreach's charity that they've selected for the year. One other thing, if you're under 40, on December 31st of last year, if you were under 40, please come see me. I've already printed them out. I have an application for you to apply for Who's Who under 40, and the deadline is March 18th. And I don't know if you'll get selected. It depends on how many people apply. It depends on what you've done. But it's not just about production. It includes your community involvement, your involvement at LVR, and gee, have you contributed to RPAC? If you went to Tom's thing, you contributed $100, or I should say invested. So, see me after the meeting for either one of these things.
Cool, thank you, Janet. Before we go on to anything else, any wants or needs, any new listings, any buyer needs, any needs at all? I will pitch that I have a small medical building coming up over off of Sahara. And so if you have a doctor or an attorney that's looking for their own practice site, I'm not going to tell you yet, not until I find out more details. I'll have it next week, and I'll give you the exact location. But it's 10,000 square feet, and it's prime medical office space.
Is it over in town?
Nope, it's not. I'll have the whole thing vacant. So if it's something you have an interest in, I'll give you more details. Anyone else have one?
I have a client looking for 2-acre commercial lot to put gas stations on it all over town, whatever is convenient.
Nice. You never find a gas station when I'm out of gas.
I have a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,800 square foot house off of Lake Mead and Torrey Pines with a pool, quarter-acre lot in a cul-de-sac, listed at 419. I also, it's a 2-story. Also have coming up a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo off of Wallapai and 215. I don't know.
419.
Yeah, and the higher two, we're just waiting for some details. So we probably somewhere in the 260, 270.
Anybody else?
We got a couple of, anybody got Turnberry buyers? Anybody
Yeah.
Turnberry out there? Got a couple pocket listings, one at about 2.2 and the other around just under $1 million. Great views. The one's got phenomenal views, and the other one's got great views as well. So
How big is it?
really well put together. What's that?
How big is it, 2.2?
It's 4103. So 4107.
What floor?
It's up there.
Up there.
27. So it's above
It's
everything.
not in heaven, but it's darn close.
Yeah, it's not in heaven, but you can see it from there.
I'm going to trademark that. Okay, so we're going to give it up to Shelley with Prosperity for our mortgage moment. Applause wasn't solicited.
Happy Tuesday! Do you guys get it? Two. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. My friends from Chicago Title back there are here, and they never get an opportunity to speak in front of them. So give it up for them. It's weird to be on the other side of the glass. Say hi. All right. Have you guys heard about rates?
They're up and down.
They're up and down. They are. Right now, the environment, because of all the, is it called geopolitical things that are happening with Russia and all that good stuff, they are really vulnerable right now. So just wanted to share with you right now, current rate, 30 fixed rate mortgage is at 4%. To kind of put that in perspective, if rates happen to go up 0.25%, that affects our client's payment by about $35 to $50, depending on sales price. For a sales price of about $400, that's $35 on a payment, right? Or about $7,000 in sales price. So meaning that they qualify for $7,000 less if the rates happen to increase by 0.25%. I have a lot of clients today that are calling me saying, hey, I just saw a rate of 2.75%. I'm like, really? Lock in. Like, you want to send me that information? They're actually sending the information coming back that it's actually a 15-year fixed mortgage with 2 discount points. So obviously make sure that you're talking to your clients. There's a lot of stuff that's going out because for them, they remember rates at about 3%, right, 2.75. What they're seeing though is what they're not seeing is that fine print of about of the 15-year term. Something though else that I would also throw out to you is, I know right now because of where the rates are at, a lot of our clients may be rate shopping. Have them do that before they go into contract. I actually had a client who rate shopped us, made a decision to use the other lender. They actually just called me this morning because the lender forgot to lock in their interest rate and is now requiring them to put more money down. So, and I'm not bait and switch in that particular situation, but make sure if you are going into contract, your clients are also, encourage them to lock in immediately. We do offer an extended rate lock policy. We're actually working on a lock and shop as well. But for those of you who are in new construction or builder transactions, you can do a 12-month lock with us with a 1% upfront fee and a float down option, which is something right now that's a little unheard of. I know some of the builders are bringing that out too. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to one of us. We talked about the doctor program last week. Do you guys remember doctor program? Tony talked about that. 100% down payment. I actually did a quote for one of Andrew's clients. They want 5% down, no mortgage insurance. That rate today is 4.25%. 95%, so 5% down, no mortgage insurance. That rate is 4.25%. To do a jumbo, 90% no MI. The rate today is 4%. So just wanted to give you some updates on rates. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And happy Tuesday! Any questions for me?
What's
yes.
a float down rate?
So you have an opportunity within about 45 days of closing that you can actually negotiate to drop that in, to float that rate down, as long as it's more than 0.25% better approved. So 1% up front will actually hold the rate, secure it, right? So we're going to collect that up front from the clients, and then we'll utilize it when they close. That can be used towards their down payment or float, actually just their closing costs or buy down of the rate.
Very cool.
Cool. Any other questions?
You said upfront, so they're, when you said that you collect that upfront, so
Yeah.
they're paying you upfront? Or
They are, yeah. So I have we only take Bitcoin, actually. No, so we'll actually just receive their check. So let's say an example, the loan amount is $400,000. We'll collect $4,000 upfront. We will hold it on with us so that it will be replaced, or it will be returned to them as far as a letter of credit for $4,000 to close of escrow. Otherwise, if they decide to cancel for whatever reason, they lose that $4,000. Great question. Anything else? All right.
Give Charlie a round of applause. Charlie has been working tirelessly on our awards banquet. So if you guys don't know, we have it coming up on the 25th at Meet LV. That's a place downtown. It's a big banquet hall that used to be, I think, a federal building years and years and years ago, or a post office, something like that. It's going to be fantastic, so we're going to have a good time.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, so my first question, this is our illustrious broker panel. These are the best of the best here at Signature, the best of the best in the industry. And so with that, the first question is, with the upcoming awards event and all the hype around awards, what role have awards played in your development as agents and brokers?
Well, it's always nice to be recognized for your hard work and things that you've accomplished, but, you know, I don't think they've played any role. I'm not one of those people that, oh my God, Todd got this award, I'm gonna get it next year. I'm not one of those people. Todd is, I'm not. But, in fact, he announced in February who the broker of the year was going to be. But, I don't.
Last February.
Yeah. For this February.
That's right.
You see, it plays a role in his life. But, you know, I think a lot of it depends on your ego. How big is your ego? I'm just like, thank you for the recognition. I appreciate it. It makes me happy. But they don't really play a role in my life.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think for me, the only role that would play would be, it would just help me want to achieve more the next year. So mine's more of a production type award, not necessarily a thanks for showing up kind of award thing. So, you know, each year I'll just gauge my last year based on what my production was and the award. And it's not necessarily even the award, it's just the fact that there was a production number. I had a goal, did I meet my goal? And that helps me set my goal for the next year.
Yeah, and if you're talking about, you know, establishing your business with the consumer, no. You know, they could care less what kind of awards we have, be it production, be it, you know, Realtor of the Year. Within the industry, I think it matters because it gives the other side comfort. I know, and this may not be right, who cares? Because it benefits my consumer, my client, that the name recognition. When I send somebody, I just had one the other day that called me up and they rattled off, you know, they knew I was past president, this and that. They knew my lender personally. And relationships matter. They knew my transaction coordinator personally. Those things matter. So I think that helps. But at the end of the day, what is a consumer looking for? What does a consumer want in their realtor? Number one thing, and 2 and 3 are not even close. What is it? Nope. Ain't.
This is obviously real estate. Go ahead.
It's, if you read it, go in there, no, none of that. And so when's the last time you've gotten a direct mail piece from a realtor? When was that? And what do they say?
I don't know.
Top negotiator, I've sold $10 billion yesterday in real estate, all that stuff. It's all about them, and none of that matters. If you go back and look at the buyer's or seller's report, you should be looking at that every October. Comes out every October. The number one thing is honesty. They want to believe their realtor, and they don't. They don't believe us. So honesty is the first thing that we need to be there. All this other stuff doesn't matter. It's all about them. It's all about the realtor, and none of it's about the consumer. The consumer wants to be the trusted advisor, and so there's none of that other stuff matters.
So I like that he said that because I wrote down some notes. All I see with awards are predetermined goals that someone's already hit. And that's really what it is, right? I mean, Realtor of the Year, production awards, those are things that were set out as benchmarks for people to achieve because someone else had done it. And to kind of go along that process, that's what it's set there for. Who here would like to be the #1 agent at Signature? Yeah, I have a few head nods. All the problems are at the top, right? I wouldn't mind being 3, 4, and 5 because they don't have all the risk, right? But I think the whole point is it's the value of trying to achieve something. And that little plaque that sits on your desk or that little glass statue is acknowledgement that you can do it when you put your mind to it, right? I remember when I first came over to Signature, I was in Janet's office, and up on the top shelf behind her desk was all of her awards that she'd been given over an amazing career in real estate. Unfortunately, the shelf cracked and broke, and a lot of those awards broke. And I started thinking, oh my God, that's horrible, worst thing I could ever think of. But the awards didn't make Janet. Janet made the awards, right? And so I think the whole point of this is, it's great to give acknowledgement, and it's great to participate in something fantastic like our awards events because it acknowledges the hard work. And the hard work is the important part. I will disagree with one thing though. I have used awards to get business. It didn't matter what the award was. It could have been, second place in a contest, but it was the fact that it was an opening line on a marketing piece that people do look at. But to Keith's point, it looks at the honesty behind the fact that your industry saw value in you, so maybe I will as well. And so I think he's absolutely right when it comes to the honesty part. I'm just curious though, what was the best award that you were excited to have won? And I don't care the reason, but what was the one you were like, man, that was a lifetime achievement kind of thing, that's pretty cool?
Oh, wow. Probably the just last year, the Jack Woodcock Award, someone that I respect back, and all the jokes that go with that. Yeah, I mean, Jack Woodcock's someone that I've always admired and fought with and argued with, but definitely the Jack Woodcock Award.
I think mine probably has to be the Gene Nebitner Award, which is given to one person from the association every year. And it basically is, you're kind of what it epitomizes being a realtor. And I was totally shocked and amazed, but I was even more shocked and amazed at the vetting process because having won the award, whatever year it was, I don't remember. The next year, I got to serve on the selection committee. Now, they changed that up, and there's certain different criteria now, so just because you won doesn't mean you get to be on the selection committee. But when I saw how the people were vetted, and every committee I'd ever been on had to have been on display, and every dime I'd ever given to RPAC, I was even more humbled and honored that next year than I was when I first got it, because I was like, what? Me?
I don't have any, sorry.
Oh, you do too.
So one time I was in business with this guy named Chris, and I was told, so look, I've never been to like an award ceremony for the association. I've kind of purposely not gone to those, I guess. I don't know, I've just not been a part of that, of the association. And Chris says, hey, you gotta come to this award ceremony, or it was a luncheon actually, I believe. General membership meeting, that's what it was. That's coming up here pretty quick, right? And I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'll go just to make my partner get off my back about it. And at that I was awarded the Realtor of the Month. I don't remember what year it was or anything like that, but that's probably the biggest award I've ever gotten from the association or as a part of. I mean, I've got lots of production awards and things, but probably Realtor of the Month.
All right, so this is funny because it's funny. So one of my mentors, Devin Reese, who was a real estate commissioner, he was the closest to my age and the past presidents that were there, and everything he said made a lot of sense to me. And so on his desk was this award that looked like the Superman crystal thing in the original Superman movie, right? And I looked at it and I said, Devin, what's that? He goes, oh, that's the Nevada Realtor of the Year award. Now, I didn't really care what Nevada Realtor of the Year was. I just cared that that's the coolest award I've ever seen. And I want that sitting on my desk someday. And I said, how did you get that? And he says, man, years and years of pain and experience. And, I said, well, explain the process. So he kind of explained, I started locally, I went through this, I went through the state, I participated in these meetings, and I finally got elected. And, it's kind of the honorarium after the end of that year. And I was like, man, that's freaking cool. And so I won't lie, that the day that award showed up and I put that Superman trophy on my desk was a cool day because it meant that I had saw a vision of what could happen and I achieved it. And so that was the coolest kind of realtor award. I got a production award as Rookie of the Year when I first started, and that meant a lot to me because everyone had kind of said, oh, well, of course you'll have it easy, your parents are in the business kind of thing. And if you met my parents, they didn't give me any deals. They helped me get there, but the fact that I got that was a pretty big deal for my life personally. So, mommy built me a ship, so now I'm a captain.
So before you ask your next question, can I throw something out at this?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, because Todd mentioned receiving Realtor of the Year at a general membership meeting for the, sorry. For those of you who don't read your email, we're having a general membership meeting March 18th at the Four Seasons. Start registering now. It's free, essentially. It's networking before lunch, a fabulous luncheon, guest speaker at lunch, and free CE afterwards. It does not get any better, and if you put $35 on your credit card and you show up and you sign in, guess what? That $35 is going to go against your next bill, which will be MLS fees. So please register March 18th at the Four Seasons. Networking starts at 11.
It's $35.
Just turned $35.
You can donate to that fund. Okay, so next up, such a big shortage of listings that are out there, and I'm glad that so many people promoted their new listings that they have coming up. But with a market like this, we're seeing more and more that agents are coming to you saying, hey, I noticed you have a listing, can I market your listing? And so I want to ask these illustrious brokers up here, what do's and don'ts do you recommend when it comes to advertising another agent's listing?
Another agent's listing?
Yeah.
Well, I don't, so that's the don't. I never do, so.
Okay.
Don't answer.
Yeah, don't answer. Don't answer my phone call. I mean, for those of you that are doing it, I think tread lightly. I just I've never gone down that road unless it's an agent that I know, an agent within the company, and those kinds of things. But other than that, I really don't. I mean, the market is the market. Is that open houses should be run by open house or by yourself and your team, and we've always just done it that way. So your job is to sell a house, not have someone else market it for their purposes. Why are they marketing it? More than likely to get the buyers that will be generated from where you should be doing it. So.
Janet, if you're gonna keep your own mic, you gotta go second so that I can get my mic.
Okay,
Right?
so I think the question, if I'm interpreting your intent, was, so I have a listing and how do I feel about other agents marketing my listing?
Sure, that can be it too.
Okay, then I'll answer that question. I really don't care. My job is to get the house done, and if you have somebody that you're gonna market to who's gonna say, hey, I really wanna see this house and buy it, I really don't care. My job is to get the house sold for the seller. On the other hand, I also have a different little viewpoint, and that is a lot of really busy agents don't have time to do open houses, and your seller wants an open house, and they're tired on their only day off, and they have to do laundry and grocery shopping. And you have some poor new agent who has no business and begs you to please let me do an open house. Why not? That's how most of us got started. You still may get your listing sold, but you've also managed to help somebody else out. So I have no problem with
I thought Keith was gonna get escorted out there for a minute. So for me, two things. Make sure you have it in writing, they gave you permission to do it. So somehow text, email, something that says, hey, Janet, I'd like to market your new listing. Is that okay? Yes, great. Put that in your file. By the way, where is your file? SkySlope, not the one at your desk, not the one in your car. It's SkySlope. Just put it in SkySlope. You can send an email there. It's super easy. Yeah, and I'm a little bit along with Janet. This is a great way to get started in the business if you don't have a listing of your own. You want to go out and do some marketing. You want to figure out how to get into the marketing and how that's going to work. And I think it's good to do that because when you do get your own listing, now you'll actually have some experience on how to market a property that will maybe cause it to sell. And in today's market, do you know what causes houses to sell? Literally everything causes a house to sell. It doesn't, all you do is breathe that you have it and it sells, right? But guys, that's gonna change. There's going to be a time when we're gonna be going, man, I've had this on the market for 6 months and I don't know what to do to get it sold. And right now is a good time to be practicing what your marketing should look like, how you should be doing it, what are the things you should be spending money on, what are the things you should not be spending money on, things that are free, things that cost things to sell. So I think it's a good time to practice on other people's listings. Look, they go under contract so quickly now that you almost can't get much marketing done. And so make sure you're being truthful in your marketing. If it's something that's already under contract, make sure that you're marketing it appropriately.
The correct is, what does your seller say? That's the correct answer, is what does your seller say? It's not up to us.
So I mirror everything that they said. When I was a practicing agent, I felt like Keith, I sell my listings, right? So I'm gonna go out and pound the pavement, hold my open houses, do the activities, and that was where I generated my extra business. I called it Bob, business around business, or BAB. Business, yeah, I went to that day. BAB. It was a good weekend, okay? So, but that was the point when I was an agent, that's how I got my extra business. When I became a broker and I couldn't go out and represent buyers or work that, I needed help from people to market around my properties. And to Todd's point, I always had a written agreement on what happens when they go out and market around my home. Because it's easy to say yes to someone to come and do it, but the expectation that they have and the expectation that I have are two different things. And so I actually know of agents out there that they expect that when you get a buyer from their listing, you owe them some type of referral fee. And I know agents out there that when they market your listing, they don't know your name anymore. And so you want to make sure that whatever you do, that you have a written agreement that this is what will be. And the other thing is, you're not the listing agent. And so to Todd's point, you need to promote the fact that this is someone else's property. And if you're outside of the brokerage and you get another agent somewhere else, it's required by brokerage or by MLS policy that you have to acknowledge that broker as the listing agent. And so it's a very fine line of what you can get in trouble for, to Keith's point, if you're out there marketing it. And so you have to have your seller on board with the fact that it's going to happen. Who is this person in my house that's not you? And if something gets stolen or the house damaged while they're in the property, you're the liability that's responsible for them being there, because they're in and above what a typical showing agent would be. So I want to make sure that everyone's cognizant of the point that yes, it's a way to get business. Yes, if you don't have a listing, you need to go out and help find them. And so, but make sure that you're doing it the right way in writing based on what everyone just said up here.
Janet's always been a rule breaker.
I know, Janet's a real rule breaker. All right, so this is what I see as the biggest problem in the marketplace, and this is the biggest broker question I keep getting. I have a buyer who's under 300 and can't get a property. Anyone have that? Right? I'm gonna tell you right now that in 2011, 300 was luxury real estate in Southern Nevada, right? I was praying to have a buyer that had 350 to try to get qualified for. But now the point is these people cannot get homes. And so based on your experience through all of these markets, and we've all been through them, what recommendation do you have for those buyers or those agents with those buyers to keep them motivated or engaged? And Janet, we'll start with you so I can pass the mic down.
You know, just get lots of practice writing numbers. That's all I can tell you. I don't know, because you can't do love letters. And I don't know what else to tell you, except this does help a lot. Call the listing agent. Talk to the listing agent. Be respectful to the listing agent. Make friends with the listing agent. Make them want you on the other side of the transaction. Other than that, I don't know what these poor people are going to do.
I'm going to totally disagree with her. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, here's what I'll tell you. The best chance you have of getting an offer accepted is to communicate with the listing agent how the listing agent wants to be communicated with. Does that make any sense? Yes. Like Janet just said, call the listing agent. If you go to one of my listings, it specifically says, the very first part of the agent marks, do all of you know that exists? There's this little section that you can read that will give you all kinds of insight into this listing. If you'll just stop and read it, all you guys, Mike's calling. Mike is ready to talk to him. Listen, mine says for more information on this property, text this phone number. It's my cell phone number. They're texting me directly. But if you're an agent that's blowing my phone up because Janet told you to call the listing agent and you call me 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a 3-day weekend when I'm just not answering the phone every single minute that it rings, it's against you. It's going to go against you. Like, not that I'm going to not sell you the property, but I'm just saying if you want to be that agent that comes across as the one that is trying to help the listing agent get it sold, read the agent remarks. It's gonna lead to the easiest path to getting them to accept your offer. And mine just says, hey, give me a text. And then if your questions are so big and so detailed that we need to jump on a phone call, I'll call you back. But most of the time it's, do you have any offers? You don't need to call me and ask me, do I have any offers? First of all, there's a status update in the MLS. I understand most agents don't use that. I do, but most don't, I get it. But if you just want to know if I have any offers, I really don't need to answer the phone to do that. I can say yes or no in a text. It's very simple. And by the way, a lot of times I'll have text pre-set up that I can copy and paste that will actually give you a lot more information about the property than you were even asking for. So all I'll tell you is read the agent remarks. If the agent says text, text them. If it says call, call them. If it says nothing, you get to pick how you want to do it. I think, you have to write a lot of offers. No question about that. But I think it's about communication with the agent. 100% about communication with the agent.
So below 300, the short answer is start farming Searchlight. That might help. It might be about that. I haven't been to Searchlight lately, all right? You have, apparently.
They are expanding.
I'm talking about ones without wheels. And to Todd's point, I mean, but I never ask if you have. If it's in this market below 350, does it have offers on it already? Yes or no? Yes. And so I don't ask if it has offers. I ask how many offers do you have? That's the first question I'll ask. Then the next question is, what do you think? After getting back to about 10 minutes, if I can't tell you that, that's against the rules, all those things. My next question is, what will it take for my buyer who's very interested in this property? What price do they need to be at? What price do you already have that I can go back and talk to my buyer with? And again, do you answer that? Yes or no?
Yep.
Can you answer that? Yes or no? Absolutely. You'd be shocked at how many people out there that say, no, I can't answer that. So those are the first two things I ask. And then the third thing I ask is, what is important to your seller that will help make this transaction smoother, that will get my buyer in the house? You'll be shocked at how many things you hear from that. It's not always price. It's not always terms. There's some things that are involved sometimes that make that transaction more attractive to the seller. So I ask those three things, and then I ask 3B. When can we present the offer in person? It's your obligation to present in person. How many times have you presented in person? I can almost guarantee it's been 0. Do you think it's going to make an impact if you go to front of the seller with their agent and present in person? Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does.
Okay, so this one came up with members of my team, right? At all of our teams, we get this all the time. And so the point I have for you is, does the buyer understand how tough the market is, or are you shielding them from it? And what I mean by that is, when you went to search for their property, did you involve them in the process that it took to find the homes? And so let me give you an example. You have a buyer consultation with a buyer, you get them to sign your buyer broker agreement so you know you're not working for free. The buyer comes into your office, or they get on a Zoom call with you, and you open up the MLS and you show them the search grid. And you ask them the questions of what they need and what they want, what they have to have, and where they want to live and what price they want to pay. And you put it all into the system that they watch you do it, and it spits out 2. Now, is the buyer going to come back and ask you about 35 other homes that they see on Zillow because they're participating in their own search? No, they're going to look and say, wow, I'm part of this, I saw it, there's only 2 homes. Maybe we should get serious about these 2. And I'll tell you, the one thing that he said that got me my last deal was, I was at the house, the seller and her agent were at the house, and while we were there, I said to the seller, what's more important to you, the offer amount or the time when you move? And she says, well, it's funny you say that, my husband just passed away, and I'm really worried about moving everything out of this 4,000 square foot home. I'd love an extra 2 months to move. And so we wrote an offer competing against 10 other offers, and the thing that we put in was a 2-month free rent back with no cost to her, and guess whose offer got accepted? It was obviously minor to make a really bad story, right? But the whole point was that we asked that question and they accepted our offer because we cared about what the seller cared about. And that is a huge point that makes that difference. The other thing is these buyers are gonna get pissed. They've been beat out 6 times. The more involvement that they have with you on what's going on and the better the communication, the more likely they are to stay with you. Because if you think they're not gonna go cheat on you because you don't have a buyer broker agreement, you're crazy. They're going to every open house in the marketplace. They're in everyone's sign-up sheet because they have no commitment to you. And so if I were you, I wouldn't represent any buyer in this market without an agreement. Just, I wouldn't do it. Okay, so this one came up. Todd brought it up as a great thing that we're dealing with. Not great, but a pain in the butt. And we'll start with V on this. What issues are you seeing with leasebacks that agents aren't paying attention to?
Security deposits are a big deal. They're charging ridiculous amounts of security deposits. They're asking for long-term rent backs over 30 days. They're playing the part of a property manager, which is a huge problem. You can't be doing that. You have to be very careful that you can't, the lease, so if I can avoid it in any transaction, I do, right? Because the lease back without fail causes some issue. It is also a problem for cleanup, right? When how the property gets cleaned. Now, if it becomes a property that's being managed, it's going to have different cleaning requirements than if it's a lease back for a week, right? Our contracts say that it just has to be broom clean, right? And so broom clean follows even through the lease back, and a lot of buyers don't tend to understand that. Sorry? It's broom clean now. It used to be broom swept. Now it's broom clean.
That was also on the lot listings, by the way.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of funny.
Vacant land, broom clean.
Yeah.
Great, nice.
So that, I think that becomes an issue, is that buyers aren't prepared for when they actually get the property back, that it doesn't have to be spotless, it doesn't have to be professionally cleaned unless it is asked for in the actual agreement. So you need to be very clear on that. You need to be clear on what happens with the security deposit if it isn't. And then who's holding that security deposit, right? If it's with a certain amount of time, a lot of escrow companies will not hold deposits for over 30 days. So you need to talk to the escrow company to find out, are they having, are they able to hold it for longer than that? And if so, are they going to charge you for it or the clients for it, right? Those are the major things that I'm seeing.
I would also add involving the property manager if there is one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That too.
Still waiting to figure out the difference between the broom clean and broom swept.
It is a...
Dirty brooms.
I don't have a broom, so that might be part of the problem. Like V, I try to avoid it, try to figure out a better solution, a better plan B. But if that comes in, no matter if we're on buyer or sellers, it's a completely separate, agreed to before close of escrow. Before actually, well, as soon as you realize there's going to have to be a lease back, it's a completely separate lease. It's a lease, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's a month, whether it's 2 months. It's a separate lease agreement, just as they were if they were going to do a long-term lease. And all those things that go into having a lease, having a landlord, having everything else goes into that, including release of any security deposit goes to the new owner, because I don't want to have to deal with different situations, blah, blah, blah. She's always...
I'm sorry, because I will forget otherwise. When you have security deposits that go back, both buyer and the seller need to understand what that looks like, by the way.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a conversation between the agents about how that's going to be handled when the tenant, the seller, moves out. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of hot water.
Amen.
That's why we have separate agreements. But you're right, you have to go and tell them, this is what this means. If something happens, blah, 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 just like you would anytime you've got a tenant and a landlord. You done praying, or you got?
Amen, brother. So here's what I think is important to understand. What I'm seeing right now is that nearly every seller that sells is asking for some type of post-possession or a lease back or a rent back, right? And so we've been using what's called the post-possession addendum. Some agents are actually writing leases. I think either one of those are sufficient depending on the time frame of the rent back or the lease back. As Chris mentioned on his recent one that got accepted, they wrote it right in the contract. And that works as well. Here's a couple things I will caution you about. Number one is, sorry?
You're right. You're good.
Wanda pointed out that be careful not doing property management. Let me explain to you where property management comes into the picture here, and many people miss this, is we're so protective of our clients that I've got a seller who needs a 2-month rent back. I'm literally ending a 66-day lease back today is the last day they're out. It's been 66 days. The buyer who bought the property wants to reach out, come to the property, measure for furniture, get the flooring measured, get the car, they got all these things they want to do during the 66-day period. And what typically happens? The agent who sold the property no longer wants to talk to you as the agent who now represents the guy that owns the property. And so you have this fight that goes back for a week on whether they can or they can't get in or not. Guys, this is a form of property management. If you do any kind of leaseback, any kind, the buyer that buys the property needs the contact information for the seller who sold the property, who's living in the property, because they are a tenant of the person who bought the property. They're not your tenant. You don't control them. It's not your job to play interference between the two. The buyer now legitimately owns the property. It's theirs. They have a right to go to the property. There's rules that are part of that. I agree. They can't just barge in on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. because I can see V. She's a Lincoln.
I am.
She's getting ready to, right? I mean, there's rules that go with that. But the bottom line is, stop trying to play interference between the buyers and the sellers now that they're the tenant, the owner owns the property. It's crucial that you exchange contact information between buyers and sellers upon close of escrow.
The purchase transaction is over.
And
I was gonna say that.
you representing them in the purchase contract has ended.
Yeah.
And if you're not a property manager, which I am not, and if any of you contact me and ask me a property manager question, I tell you one of two things: call Vonneman, call Chris. I'm not a property manager.
Wait,
I don't want to be
first.
honest. Okay, so first of all, stop doing that. Stop trying to play interference between, because it gets to be virtually impossible. The second thing is yeah, security deposits are always a challenge, right? If you have a security deposit that's held in escrow, 90% of the time at the end, that's going to get split between the two parties. They're just not going to agree to release the money. It's not, I don't know, is it not human nature? I don't know why that is, but it just never happens, okay? So if you represent the party that is staying in the property, you want the money in escrow. If you represent the party buying the property, you want the money in that person's possession. They then have 30 days after the person vacates to get that money back to them, or a letter that states why they're not giving the money back, one of the two. But if you get that deep into it, talk to a broker. But what I will tell you is the biggest challenge I get, and my phone rings off the hook with, oh my gosh, this agent, they won't call me back, I can't talk to them, my client is in for the weekend and they want to see the property, they got to measure for their furniture. Look, guys, stop trying to play property manager. Just exchange contact information at the close of escrow. It's that simple. Go, Vonda, go.
Okay, so I was gonna add, sorry?
Isn't the seller buyer, their information was on the contract, and, it said their name, where they signed, their email, their phone number?
No.
Not on an RPA. There's
No.
nothing like that. So what I was gonna say is, does anybody know why Key's comment was so important? The transaction is over. Why is that so important?
Because that's where your ego is.
That's where our ends, right? The transaction, technically, when it's over, you can't go back and negotiate. You're now outside the scope of your license. And that is a violation of NRS, NAC, as well as the Code of Ethics. Like, that's a big freaking deal, right? So you cannot continue, even if it's EMD deposit issues, right? You can't continue that conversation. Your time when that transaction closes or it's canceled, it's done. You're done. Your job is done. Go have a conversation with a broker, and the broker can help you facilitate one conversation, and then that's it.
So the only thing I wanted to add to what Todd said was, when I wrote that into the contract, because I'm a property manager and because I know what's in the lease and I know what's going to happen because I am one of the brokers that's going to help you with it, I wrote all of the terms that are going to be agreed upon in the contract in the back of the additional terms. What the rent amount is going to be, what the term is going to be, what the security deposit will be, who will hold it, what will happen when the addendum needs to be signed. So if you have a agreement like Todd was referring to, you need to put into the purchase agreement when that agreement's going to be executed, because if you don't, you will be sitting at close of escrow with no agreement, and everyone says, well, we'll do it later. And that's not a fiduciary responsibility that you provided your client. You should know what you should know, and you should have known to have done that. So all those things need to be included.
Let me just add this real quick. My goal would be always to execute your post-possession during the due diligence period. Always during the due diligence period. Try to get it done inside the due diligence period. Now I know, as Keith pointed out, there's times when it comes up closer to the end. Didn't really intend for it to be, but it ends up having to be. That's fine. But if you go in knowing the seller's going to get a lease back, try to put in the contract that that's going to get executed during due diligence period. That's a great protection for your buyer. Now let's talk about if you represent the seller. What is the one thing that our contract doesn't allow the seller to do at any time during the contract? Cancel. So if I get you under contract, I'm the buyer's agent, I get you guys under contract, and then I come back and I say, hey, let's negotiate the post-possession, and I want you to pay $1,600 a month. It's really only worth $1,100 a month, and I want you to put $5,000 in as a security deposit, and they don't want to put $5,000 in. Can the seller cancel because they can't agree on terms? They can't. So if you're representing the seller, I would tell you should always have some kind of counter, some term in the contract that says that if buyer and seller cannot agree on leaseback terms prior to the end of the due diligence period, seller reserves the right to cancel the contract. Okay? Because if you don't do that, I've said in I don't know how many times, and looked the agent in the face and said, look, there's literally nothing that you can do. If that's what they're demanding and they're ready to close escrow, you really don't have a choice, because you didn't deal with this in the beginning. You didn't give your seller the opportunity to negotiate those terms. So either negotiate it before you accept the offer and everyone's good with it. Make sure it's done during due diligence period if you're on the buy side. If you're on the sell side, there better be something in there. If you're going to take care of it later, there better be something that gives your seller a right or a protection that they don't have to pay some astronomical amount of money.
Okay, so we're going to change gears, go on a different topic, and this is one that should scare the hell out of you, because it scared the hell out of me. So we have an agent in our company who did everything right as a listing agent. They got the property listed, they did a great job pricing the property, they did their research, they put the property on the market, they got an offer right away after multiple, offer goes under contract, appraiser comes out to the property, measures the property, which some appraisers do and some appraisers don't, and find out the property is 400 square feet smaller than it was listed in the tax record. So tax record automatically feeds to the MLS, which we don't get in the middle of that, right? And that's what showed in there. And so for 20 years, since I graduated high school, this property was listed at the wrong square footage, and it was transacted 4 times. And it was finally caught in our transaction. Now here's what's scary about this. If this property had sold and no one had known, there's a chance that when it goes to convey the next time, and they find out about the square footage difference, our agent, our client, and our company could be pulled into a lawsuit over that square footage. And this is what could happen, because all of these agents along the way may have not done their due diligence to verify whether this property matched or not. Now here's what's concerning. There's not one property match in the subdivision that matches this home in a tract community, right? And so when they went to price it, they priced it based on these terms, and the 400 square feet difference matches another model. And so is there a chance that I should have known that? There possibly could be. But the whole rule of thumb is I don't dictate square footage. I put in what says in the tax record, what auto-populates from the MLS, and that's why it's a locked field. And the only way I can change it is by a measurement from an appraiser, a blueprint, and a contractor's original plans, right? Because that's the liability on those people. Now what's probably gonna happen is this suit could go all the way back to a builder and say, you initially sold us the wrong square footage on this property. That could happen. But what I want to point out here that's really important to me is we're seeing more and more that agents just trust whatever's in the MLS. What does it say at the bottom of the listing on the MLS? Information is not deemed to be correct, right? It's buyer's due diligence to check it out. Now that waiver is protection of the Board of Realtors. It's not your protection. But what I'm saying to you as agents is that you need to do your duty of going out to the property, of checking to make sure that things make sense, and not picking a model match and just inputting the information. all of your years of experience, have you ever had a property wrong in the MLS and you're the one that found out that it was wrong?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't measure.
I don't measure either. It's not
Right. The other, I was going to point out that the buyer's notice of disclosure, if you guys are completing that, it also is a waiver for you on square footage. That is probably one of the best documents that you can have signed by your buyer. It's a CYA. Yes, it's just paper, I get it, and if an attorney ever looks at it, it'll be, well, it's just paper that, you know, a buyer signed, but it's one more, if you're explaining it to buyer, you're taking the time to do a buyer consultation, it is one more way for you to protect yourself on the square footage issue, on the disappearing golf courses, on the smart home devices, I mean, you name it, that document has it all, right? So keep that in mind. I don't do a transaction with a buyer without that document in my file, period, the end. And so your main question, what you actually asked, I don't have the answer to, so I'll just pass it on.
So when I first started in real estate, it was a requirement of my broker that we had to draw a diagram and measure the exterior of the house. And I will tell you quite honestly, my figures that I came up with as far as square footage that had to be submitted never matched what was in the tax start. But I'll tell you where I've had a lot of issues over the years, and I'll just use a previous home that I owned as an example. When I bought my house brand new, being built, the builder said it was 2,800 square feet. In fact, I think when I moved out of that house 20 years later, I still have the brochure that said it was 2,800 square feet. But if you wanted to find, it was at the lakes, if you wanted to find my model in the subdivision, Jack Star had a 2731 all day long. So if I looked up 2,800, I got nothing. And I have had issues over the years with buyers who are selling this home that they bought brand new, and arguments. I actually had my former little babysitter cry when I said, no, your house is the square footage, and she said, no, it's not, and she got up and she went into her bedroom and came back with a brochure from the seller and insisted I put that square footage in the MLS. So that can be an issue. And how you overcome it, I don't know. This is what the county says, this is what the builder says, but if anybody wants to find your model on the MLS, we're gonna have to go with county tax record.
That's exactly why we shouldn't be measuring. Janet's example, that's, you know, first of all, that's, we should not be measuring, even if we can measure, we shouldn't be measuring. And we also shouldn't be putting in agent-to-agent remarks, buyer to verify all, because that gets you off the hook of absolutely nothing. I don't care what you put in there, it's just words that you've wasted, that you could be putting something else on there. Have I ever had anything wrong? I honestly don't know that I have or haven't, but you've got to rely on your defenses as a listing agent are the county tax record. If you mess with that, you're at risk. If you don't, you've got the Clark County to point to say that that's the issue, not me or not us. So exactly, the source of the source. So good question. Weird, but yeah.
So for me, it's there's not a single house in the subdivision that's the same square footage as this particular house, and that's a red flag. It's actually happened to me one other time. It was on my mother's personal home. Hers was 21 square feet bigger than the other houses in the neighborhood that were the same model, and so we kind of explored that a little bit. But here's what I'll tell you: if there isn't a single house in the neighborhood that matches that square footage because Vegas is so tract ridden, that's got to send a little red flag up that says, wait, there might be a possible problem here. And all that does is open a conversation between you as the agent and the seller. Hey, seller, this is what it says. This is kind of what it looks like. What do you want to do about this? Because I happen to know in this particular case that this seller stands to take quite a hit financially.
$70,000.
And so if I caught the red flag when I was looking up the comps and had that conversation, it wouldn't quite be as devastating. Of course, 70,000 is never going to be an easy thing to swallow, but it's that red flag, and then let's have that conversation around why is there a difference and why is your house the only house in the whole neighborhood that's that specific square footage.
And I want to point out, the best thing about this is our agent did nothing wrong, right? I mean, our agent did everything right. They had a great presentation. They provided comps to the seller. They went through the process. the appraiser, and by the way, it's still under dispute with the appraiser, which they're hoping this guy just had a bad day, right? But they're going back through these channels. My point to you was, I would want to be in this position and have backup defense that I did these things, that I checked these things, and I'm doing it through the process before I start the contract, not when I'm in contract. And that's the only thing about this that kind of sucks. They're in contract between two parties, and of course the buyer's gonna say, well, I'm not gonna pay more for that house and not have the extra 400 square feet. And the seller's gonna say, well, I'm not taking a $70,000 loss. And so the deal's probably gonna cancel. But my whole point is, a little bit of research and due diligence could help you. I'll give you another example in a different way. I had a property that we went to list for an investor, and come to find out that the garage, right, which every other model had a third car garage, we didn't. We had a den, but they had never listed it in the square footage as usable square feet. And so I called up an appraiser before we listed the property. We paid him $200. He came out and he remeasured the home and provided us with a new measurement that increased the size of the home by 225 square feet. Do you think that was a major value to my investor that was trying to get the most for the home? Yeah. And so when he bought this home, it wasn't listed that way. We didn't know it, but after he acquired it and got it, when I went to list it, we figured it out. And so that's all I'm saying is do a little bit of due diligence, check these things out, and make sure that you're at least trying to do the best you can for your client. The other thing is, don't just copy MLS listings because most of the agents are wrong.
Two questions.
Yes?
Am I first? Okay, so if a home does have more square footage than on the tax record, then what's the situation? Because when I work with investors, they say, oh, they can't charge me for it because it's not on the tax record.
So here's the point. When you're the listing agent, right, that investor is going to want to make sure the right square footage is listed. So you have to go get one of the three things we talked about to be able to even go to the MLS to change it. And the whole point of what Vandana said is source the source. You're not the one changing it. An appraiser or a contractor or the builder is the one changing it. So where does all the liability sit? On them. And then once they get that, they can apply to the assessor to have it altered in that assessment, right?
Okay, so my first listing like a year ago, so I see here my ex-broker wrote, come see this beautiful home in Spanish Hills, corrugated, all custom. Okay, actual square footage is more than 4,000 despite the tax record.
So that, like he said, that did absolutely nothing, right? All you did was tell them that it's wrong. What value did that bring to anybody?
But now,
You know what I'm saying?
So
You gotta do-
as a-
it's up to the buyer. If the buyer says, well, why would I pay for more from the tax record?
Well,
Because I had that happen.
they can go and have the assessor reassess the property after they've purchased it so that they get more value for it when they sell it. But as a seller, right, they want, again, as Chris was saying, they want the most amount and they don't want to have to pay taxes based off of a new square footage, so they probably won't do anything about it except for mention it in the MLS. It's just hey buyer, just be aware that this is an issue and you can take care of it whenever the hell you feel like it.
2 meetings ago, maybe 3, he pointed out the fact that there are properties with the incorrect square footage listed in the MLS.
Yeah.
And the sellers lived in them for 20 years. You do not want to be the person to go tell the assessor for this client that you haven't signed yet that their square footage is wrong, because they're going to hate you and you won't get the listing. But that's his point. You're not going to get in the middle of what they're already doing. That was their choice, right? And there are some that are just dead wrong.
And I get what you guys said, but my point is what I tell to my buyer when the buyer goes, well, it's not on the tax record. I don't wanna pay
If
for
the,
it.
We'll get,
if the square footage of the property, if the listed square footage is less than the actual square footage, you tell your investor to buy it. Because after they buy it, they can go get it reassessed, get the bigger square footage put on the MLS. When they go to sell it, they'll make more money.
Okay.
and the
If it shows more square footage than what it really is, then you need to have the listing agent and or the seller resolve that issue prior to them purchasing it.
Because you're paying for the square footage.
And the funny thing is,
Yes.
is that an appraiser will see that comment in the MLS, right? And so if they want to, they can actually go out and measure and then give you an appraisal that's based off of the new assessment or based off of the new square feet.
And I'll tell you, I know an agent, a prominent agent in town that didn't listen and went in and before it was a locked field, adjusted a square footage by 700 square feet.
That's what I thought.
And at $200 a square foot, they paid the difference. They were sued for $140,000, well actually $280,000, They were sued and their brokerage had to pay the difference because they altered the square footage and falsely marketed that property. And so that's what you don't want to have happen, that's why it's blocked.
I think my question basically was going the route that she went, is if you have a listing and the square footage is smaller, you would want to get some route into the tax assessor's office so that they can change it so it reflects properly in the listing, because it's going to populate from that.
Maybe. I actually sold a custom home that the seller did not want to go get the square footage fixed because he hadn't been paying any of the property taxes based on the wrong product, and he didn't want to get reassessed for after living there for 20 years. So maybe.
Okay.
So if you have this problem, guys, guess what? Thank you. Go talk to your broker, because there's lots of moving pieces here.
And what else, I'm sorry, just what if there is like a garage that has been converted? How do you find out if it has the proper permits?
Ooh, I love that you asked that question. Where do we get permits from? The county or the city, right? And guess what? They keep records of it. But here's the downside. My client never got a permit. And what did I just do? Hey, I'm calling about that house on 123 Main Street. You know, it has that converted garage, and I'm calling to get the permit number. Oh, what converted garage? And so you got to be very careful about that. But I would want to have a conversation with my seller in writing where I say, listen, I don't know if you're permitted. You did this before you ever met me. But here's what I do know. We want to sell this house, and we don't want you to get sued later. So you may want to talk to an attorney or a professional and find out what it entails to re-permit this. Call a contractor. That's what they do for a living. If I call up my contractor and say, 2 weeks, what does it take to get this building permitted that I have on my house? And they say, oh, it'll be about $800. Well, now I have a contractor that is the source of the source. And I go to my seller and I say, hey, listen, this guy's saying $800. Can I call down with you to the city and find out what the deal is? If they say yes and put it in writing, then I have it in writing that they asked me to do it. But you want to make sure that you're protected because people sue over this all the time. You absolutely can, but you've got to disclose it because it's a question on the SRPD, right? And so you want to make sure that they answer it because not only do they get sued, but if it's now a violation of the SRPD, they get sued for what? Treble the damages. So you don't want to be that person either.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Terry Watson, who's one of my favorite international speakers, who comes usually once a year to speak at our general membership luncheon. I think it was the last time or maybe the time before he was here. He talked about having a takedown list. And I have an agent who I really do like, who always says to me, well, if this happens, you are on my takedown list, meaning his broker's going down with him. And so you need a takedown list, someone that if you're going down, they're going to go down. And your backup take-up list in this case is county tax records. I checked it, it automatically populated, it was there. So you do have somebody because it didn't come from you. So you have somebody on your takedown.
Janet's got a burn file. Yeah. All right, this is the last question. This one came up in our Facebook group, and I think it's one that I'd like to hear all of you answer. Here at Signature, of course, workspace is something that you select. You decide if you want to come in and rent a cubicle or rent an office. And so I want to ask the seasoned group of veterans, when it comes to workspace, what do you recommend? Is it beneficial for an agent to have a workspace here at the office or at home? What would you suggest?
I would say 100% yes, because I want to tell you most of the good stuff, most of the dialogue that I learned when I was a new agent, we were all in this huge room together, probably 70, 80 agents, and you could hear people on the phone. I was brand new, sitting at my desk. I showed up at the office every single day, and I listened to somebody talk, and I go, oh, that's how you talk to a lender. Oh, these are the questions you ask the title person. Oh, I think they're talking to a seller. They're asking really good questions. A lot of what you know is not taught in classes. It's absorbed from the synergism and the networking and the conversations around you at the office. And I highly, highly recommend it. Now, there are some people who can get work done at home, but they're not getting half of what they should be getting. People to bounce things off of. People to just turn around and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I knew I was not one of those at-home work people. I got up every morning, I got dressed, I went to the office. I might go home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I was there every single day. And that's where I learned most of the stuff that I know. So yes.
So I highly recommend having an office space or coming into the office, whether it's a cubicle or a private office. I mean, here, the private offices are you can hear everything from, one side of the office to the other, so it's like a cubicle. But it is important to have a separate workspace. This became really apparent to me during COVID, like when we were, well, I know we're sort of still in it, but in the midst of like the pandemic when we had a shutdown, I was finding that I had my laptop, I opened it up, I sat on the couch, I watched TV, I did some work, I went into the kitchen, I did all of those things, and I realized, well shit, I'm working all the freaking time. Right? But if I have a separate space, and so I created an office space, if I have a separate space to do that in, now I can track how many hours I'm actually working. I'm not doing it all the time, because guess what? You need a break. You absolutely have to have a break. You need to get up, you need to walk around, you need to have people around you, like, you need to do other things, right? So it became really obvious to me that I needed a separate space. See what I'm talking about? Yeah. So we...
They're selling something.
Yeah, somebody's selling something on the other side of the wall. But it is really important to just have a space where you can work and you can focus on it. You can shut the door or put up a sign that says "Leave me the heck alone" or whatever. And I do have a lot of signs, yeah. Or just take some time for yourself. And then when you get up and walk around, kind of like Janet, if you like to be social, there's people in the office all the time that you can talk to. I don't.
So this is kind of a set up question, right? I mean, no, I absolutely don't think you should. Yeah, of course, you should have a workspace. Everybody should have a workspace. You should have somewhere that you go to work. The office is a great place for that. All the resources that you need are here. You can sit down in a conference room that has a TV. You can meet with your clients there. You can show them the searches that Chris was talking about earlier on the $300,000 people. They can be a part of that. I mean, yeah, you need a place to go to work. For me personally, I get a lot of stuff done when I'm at home, but none of it pertains to real estate. Okay, like, I can get shit done like crazy at my house, but it's never real estate. Like if you call me on a Saturday and I'm working in the garage, I don't answer my phone because it's in the house, because I'm in the garage, right? So it doesn't work for me. I need a space, I need to go to work every day. I'm like Janet. I was raised, I got up, I was at work at a certain time and went home. I'm offended that you would go home at 1 o'clock, by the way. That's just crazy.
I haven't done that in years, but when I was brand new, I used to. I'm talking to everybody at you.
More power to you. I believe in that, by the way. Schedule your mornings and let your afternoons take care of whatever they have to take care of. So, yeah, I believe that you need a workspace. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Culture, mindset, energy, that's why you do it. I'm speaking with you all three next week. Zone producers. The 9 o'clock, we need to get a better head count. So make sure you're going on, do a hashtag Boom Producer Jewelry on Facebook. Let us know that 9 o'clock to 12 is reserved for signature people. So let's fill that up before we release it to the masses. We've got a pretty good crowd in the afternoon, and some of them want to shift to the morning. So let's make sure we're doing that.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's the energy. That's everything.
So it was a fake question, because here's what I noticed. I know that there are successful agents that work from home and do a high level of business. It's nothing compared to what they do if they were in an office. And I'm going to tell you that every one of these people work from an office. And I've been through some slumps in real estate, right? Ups and downs, good and bad. And every time I look back at my business, it was when I was working from home from my home office. I don't care how big your fax machine or your computer is in your home office. It's not an office, right? People don't come and meet you in your underwear. And if they do, you have bigger problems than we do. But the point is that when you, come on! The other thing I want to put out there when he said mindset, and that's why Boom Producer is such a big part of this, is that when you are working from home, just like Todd said, you're at home. You have your dog, your kids, your spouse, whatever is going on, they interact in your business, your refrigerator. And if you go to work, does that change the way you think about things? Do you have to get ready to go to work? Do you have to get dressed to go to work? Do you have to get prepared to go to work? Do you get your car and shut things off and actually drive there? It's a complete mental shift. And if you're looking for space, we actually have some, so give us a call. We do. So guys, thank you so much. It was a great meeting. Give it up for our panel. As Pete just said, we have Boom Producer coming up on March 1st. It's going to be our own signature sales meeting that morning. We want to make sure that you've been signed up. If you're not signed up, please reach out to us and let us know. If you are signed up, you should have got a confirmation. So if you're not going to be there, don't work from home. All right, thank you so much. Have a great week.